Hello everybody and welcome to episode 5 of our My Hero Academia review podcast. If you didn't know, each and every week the two of us read through 2 volumes of the My Hero Academia manga, then sit down on this channel and review it. I am your host Hoodie, that is my co-host Zero, and this is Training Arc. If you're watching this as it goes up live on YouTube, then consider heading on over to patreon.com/KTOYT and pledging a couple bucks to get the next episode early. Of course, every episode we like to throw a question out there for you all to discuss. Last week we asked you, of the new generation, who should be the number one hero? If you want to hear our answers, head on over to the previous episode. This week, the question is a pretty basic one. So far, what has been your favorite fight? This is to celebrate me being manga only from this point on. I have no longer seen any of the anime. I am completely fresh, and as we discussed last week, what that means is that I have a new perspective. You know, I'm seeing these fights for the first time with new eyes. You know, I don't have that, oh well, this was better in the anime type of thing. You know, all of that out the window. So if you want to hear our answers, we will give those to you at the end of the video. Let us know yours in the comment section below. Zero, hit us with a brief summary of the 2 volumes that we just read, being Training Camp Invasion and the Hideout Raid.
These were some suspenseful chapters, let me tell you. So, our kids start training their quirks, you know, they're at the training camp. Midoriya pushes the hero agenda on Dakota, some kid he met at the...
Some propaganda brainwashing going on there, for sure.
And, then their training camp was crashed by villains. Deku had to save Koda, but he couldn't save Bakugo, so that kind of sucks. Tokiyami had a really cool show of power, but... Yes, he did. Couldn't control it, though. Deku must have been so vindicated.
Alright, okay, that's training camp. Then we move on to... Well, I guess there's a little more if you have any more to say about that.
There was a talking Nomu. A Nomu said... Itty kitty. Or ittle kitty.
Yes. The Nomus, they're evolving.
They're evolving, man.
Okay.
Yamamoto tagged that Nomu with the tracker. Then, you know, after the whole situation's over, the heroes use the tracker to find out where the League of Villains are located and perform a raid on their HQ.
And not just a raid. I mean, not just some heroes. We're talking the top 5 heroes plus like 30 other dudes.
Yeah,
basically. This is a pretty serious raid. I mean, we basically have every named character in the show on this mission.
We do have 3 of the top 5, I think, here. That's crazy.
No, I'm pretty sure it's the full top 5. It's All Might, Endeavor, Best Jeanist, Edge Shot, or whatever his name is. Oh shoot, who's the last one? Did they not? That's 1, 2, 3. Am I missing 3? Who's 3?
Well, I mean, the hero rankings fluctuate a lot, but I recognize one of the... Well, I think Best Jeanist is 3, first off. But okay. I recognize one of the top 5 as being a character that wasn't introduced here. It
wasn't Edge Quick or Edge Shot or whatever his name was?
You know, it was Hawks.
I do recognize that name. I guess I just kind of combined them in my head. I thought that was him. Okay. Well, anyways, all the heroes meet up. It's pretty cool, and they do this thing. Keep going.
So, while this is going on, you know, our UA boys, they're like, dang.
And girl. One girl.
And a girl. They're like, dang, I wish we could have saved Bakugo. Well, let's just do it now. I mean, you know, the pro heroes, they got a sting operation going on. Let's just run in there.
Yeah, and, you know, they have a brilliant plan. They say, all right, let's look at the roster. We got Kirishima. He's loud. He's rambunctious. He turns his arms to metal. We got Ida. He's got engines in his legs. We have Todoroki. Ice, fire. Pretty strong guy. We have Momo. Indecisive. Lacks confidence, but has a pretty good quirk, but makes things. And we have Deku, you know, and he punches things really hard. So,
sure
with these quirks in mind, let's enter the stealth mission. You know, let's just sneak in here and handle this.
Yeah, they definitely... It would have been great if they could have brought that invisible
anyone
girl.
else.
Well, yeah, anyone else really. Definitely I mean, they made it. Spoilers.
Sort of. I guess kind of. And by made it, you mean they stuck in the alleyway while other people did all the work.
Basically.
All right, but that's basically where this ends off. This is up to chapter 89, if I'm correct, and that ends right as All for One makes his appearance and
All Might smashes into him.
Yeah. So a couple interesting volumes, but just before we get into any of that, I want to talk about some of my training arc, me learning to read manga, because as I said, this is a big point in the manga for me, and I have no more experience with the anime. And I will tell you, this had a notable effect. Now, both in the sense that in the subconscious passive sense of me, having the lack of comparison, that definitely played into it. But also, I picked up a new trick. No, I was reading this volume and I paused and I just started verbally narrating what I was seeing. I think I did this. I started doing it when I was watching Deku versus Muscular, and I saw a shot where his phone flew off into the air, and I just said out loud, his phone flew out into the air, and that helped me. It was slowing me down, making sure I actually took the time to go through each piece of artwork and really absorb what's happening and not just sort of skimming it by. So it inherently made me slow down, but it also helped me fully realize everything. It really put the emphasis on making sure I knew what was happening before I moved on. So that worked pretty good. However, I will say, definitely, like I said, it slowed me down. Usually, up until this point, I've been reading 2 volumes at about an hour and a half pace. This one took an extra hour, 2.5 hours to read the whole thing. And, that sucks because that's a long time. And I hate investing that much time into most things. I mean, most movies, the beauty of movies to me is how short they are, an hour and a half to 2 hours usually. So 2.5 is definitely starting to push it. That's unfortunate. But I will say, just to spoil the general thoughts of the volume that we'll talk about later, I did end up enjoying it more for it. So as the update to my training arc, this is a great step forward.
Hell yeah.
All right, so let's talk about, because of the verbal narration, let's talk about some of these fight scenes. On a technical standpoint, I'm not going to, and when I say technical standpoint, I'm not going to talk about choreography just because that's not really my wheelhouse, but me being able to appreciate these, I did, you had said the last episode that, maybe I'd adopt the mindset that you have where it's oh, I can't wait. Because before I was oh, I knew this was done better in the anime. You said the mindset should be, I can't wait to see this animated. And I definitely did, particularly with, all of fights. I think this was the first time I really fully said that all of the fights here were really great, and I really want to see them animated. So what stands out to you as, obviously Deku versus Muscular is a big one and we have to talk about that, but there was a bunch of mini fights. Any stand out to you?
Well, Deku versus Muscular, I felt like he got kind of lucky because he ended up facing someone who basically had the same kind of quirk as him, but weaker. So,
well, or you could say unlucky because he faced someone with the same kind of quirk as him, but stronger. Because, yeah, Deku pulled out of that, but only through, some kind of BS hacks.
Some plus ultra shit. First off, don't trash my boy like that.
Well, okay, let's talk about Deku versus Muscular. One thing I want to say before we get into my disappointment with the fight, because ultimately, despite the level of fights being elevated for me in terms of enjoyment, I do think thematically I am a bit disappointed with this fight in particular. One thing I want to say before we even get into that, is that Koda ended up playing a lot smaller of a role than I thought he would. And that perhaps plays into the idea of how short this training camp actually was. It was basically just a volume, so a couple of chapters. And I don't know if Koda comes back at all. I assume he pops up here and then, but assuming this is the end of his arc, it is, I don't know. I felt like he was introduced and he was going to be this bigger thing, and he just ended up kind of, having a couple scenes and then his arc is resolved. Did you feel that way at all, or?
I don't know. I guess for someone like Koda, he's a kid. It sort of just felt like something that once he had his eyes opened, that was just sort of it.
Well, sure. I think in hindsight, I look back at this and I recognize Koda for what he was, which is just a plot device to
let Deku be a hero.
Yeah, basically, it was in some ways you could say it's like a showcasing of Deku's progress, and it's kind of like, I don't know, a brief glimpse into the effects that heroes could have on other people. And when you look at it from that angle, sure, Koda played his role, that's all. I guess just when he was introduced, I didn't expect him to just do that. I don't know, I expected him to be more pivotal to the actual plot, you know, like sort of important, but he just ended up being a sort of character progression piece for Deku, which in hindsight's not bad. I don't know, maybe for some reason, yeah, I was just expecting more. But that we could talk about Deku versus Muscular now. Do you like this fight? Because I've already sort of said that I was disappointed to some degree, but I don't know what the popular opinion is for this.
I mean, I do enjoy it. I felt like the moment where Deku declares he's going to save Koda was way cooler in the manga than it was in the anime, just by nature of, you know, it was at the end of a chapter versus the middle of an episode. But
well, I was thinking, on that note, I was thinking specifically on things we want to see animated. When Deku has that like scream, you know, that belt out, you know, akin to Tsukishima in Haikyuu at the end of season 3, where he gets the block, you know, and you just see them like belt out into the air, and you know, Deku's like shirtless and ripped, and it's just, I was like, I want to hear his scream. So it's interesting that you say that. I mean, this is a different moment, but it was the opposite of that for a different scene for me. What else were you saying? I was just asking your general thoughts on, you know, the fight.
Deku vs. Muscular. I like that, Deku got to save a kid. It's another hero rite of passage for the boy, you know? And while Koda's, like, philosophy sort of switched pretty easily, I like that Deku was able to, in the end, illuminate him, as opposed to having this character sort of be like, I hate heroes forever, even after being saved by heroes repeatedly. I mean,
there are glimpses of this fight that I like, or not glimpses, but they're like pieces of it. And I think Koda is one of those pieces where it's like, I like the effect that Deku had on Koda. You know, I said I was not expecting it, but in the end, I do like it. It's fine. Yeah. What I don't like is and what I just want to discuss, because maybe I'm wrong here. Maybe I'm misinterpreting this, but do you feel like this fight was at all counterproductive to Deku's learning arc? You know, so much has been placed since the very beginning about, like, you can't just get stronger. You know, that is not just, it's not just punching harder. It's not just going full out. That has always been his problem, and it's something he has to overcome. It was pretty much from Aizawa's introduction. He says, you know, hey, Deku, you can't pull that shit again. You know, that you will not be a hero if you do that. And then, you know, that follows through, and he starts to learn to hold back his power. And then we see him work with Gran Torino, and he develops this new technique all based around holding back his power, about not using 100%, because you cannot use 100% right now. Your body can't handle it, and you need to adapt to different, you know, strategies. And then we get to this fight, and it's just like, oh no, those strategies don't work. You know, not only do those strategies not work, 100% is not going to work either. You know what you need to do? You just need to go 1,000,000%.
Yeah, just punch him harder, actually.
So, like, to me, because like 1,000,000%, if you like, okay, if you said like 150%, maybe I'd be like a little more on board. But like 1,000,000 is such a comically large number that like it sort of feels like you're spitting in my face. You know, like despite everything leading up to this being about him being smart and him learning how to use his quirk in more intelligent ways and not just go full out, he won ultimately against Muscular through overuse of his quirk. I mean, it's the same thing as like, you know, Todoroki, which, not to say that fight is bad, but it's just like, oh, my arm is broken, just gonna break it again, man, and just gonna keep breaking it, and just gonna, how many times can you break your arm? So that is like, that is the big reason why I feel like, you know, I said on a technical level of just how much I enjoy this fight, I did enjoy this fight, and there are certain aspects of the character-wise that I also enjoyed, you know, with Koda and with him inspiring Koda. I like that. I liked all of it. What I didn't like was just what it meant for Deku learning. And for Todoroki, I brought up that he basically did the same thing in the Todoroki fight. Why I would say that is maybe different, and, this isn't something I put a lot of thought into, so I could be convinced either way, but why I would say that that's maybe different is because Todoroki, that fight was a lot about pushing him forward and a lot about progressing his arc, so it was okay to downplay Deku's arc in order to elevate another character. I am in theory, I'm okay with that. But, if it's just for Koda, if Deku's downplaying Deku's arc is just to upplay Koda, then I think Koda's going to need to play a pretty huge role moving forward, because otherwise I don't know what the point of this was.
This is something I meant to point out in the video we just released, but I'm not sure how well I got the message across. It was, how this sort of alludes to the USJ invasion when All Might was fighting the Nomu. I think that's something Deku was consciously thinking about during this fight, and he was like, oh shit, this is a real plus ultra moment. I can't hold back here. Especially...
He even has like a flashback to that, I think. I might be wrong about that, but I see what you're saying, the parallels here.
Yeah, when he was getting crushed, he was like, oh boy, sorry, All Might. Not, with that inflection, but...
I guess I see that, but to be fair, I also don't particularly like that fight either. Again, I like it in, there are certain aspects of it that I enjoy. I enjoy the way it affects other characters. I enjoy watching it happen just out of pure, primal pleasure. I don't know how to phrase that, but just watching someone get beat up, yeah, sure, that was cool, and it is hype, but I don't know, even when All Might did it, I'm sure you could find messages of me saying so he just punched harder, that's it, he said, oh, it's not working. It's not working, I just gotta keep doing it, and this is... Oh, I almost just choked on my spit. I'm talking too fast. I gotta slow down. All right. This is like when I watch sports anime, and I specifically have commented on this to you. It's always a trademark of sports anime to be the only way to win is to score more points than them, which is technically true, yes, but whenever someone says that they're already going to lose. That was a big Kuroko no Basket. Kagami says, I need to go all out and get more points. It's the only way. I just need to score more. And that was, that's just the not the winning strategy. You knew that ultimately that was going to fail, and he was going to work with Kuroko to get the W some other way through some sort of strategy. Except in this case, they say it, and it just also works. It's what is the message? What are you trying to tell me here?
Well, I do think, your criticisms are deserved, but I think Horikoshi is forgivable for this sin, especially because, like you said, Aizawa said, you can't do this, and Deku remembers that conversation. He says to himself, Aizawa was right. I could only save one person and then I was useless, or something like that. Would
it perhaps be better then, though, if Aizawa never said that? Because now it's kind of it feels like part of Horikoshi is saying that he acknowledges this flaw, but then another part of Horikoshi is saying do it anyways. So would it just be better if he never acknowledged the flaw and just was able to just accept this for what it is without if every single fight ended like this and they just accepted it as part of the story, or it was just accepted as part of the story, then maybe I could also accept it as part of the story. But because there are characters in universe saying that no, you can't keep doing this, the fact that they keep doing it makes it worse, you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I see where you're coming from, but I think if Horikoshi continued, just making Deku break his bones every time he needed to win, then it would be alright, come on, this is problematic, but... I
agree. I guess ultimately I was expecting with full cowling being developed to just to be done with this, to stop seeing him break his bones. I think I might have said that in the episode where we covered full cowling. I think I might have said that I'm happy to not see him break his bones anymore. But then we just fell back into it. But okay, that those are my complaints with the muscular fight. As I said, it was an enjoyable fight, but as you can tell, it's probably not going to be my answer to the question of the week, which is what is your favorite fight so far. Other things that happened in this invasion volume was most notable to me was I thought the sidecast got expanded in such a great way. You know, in I don't know if it was last episode, but in one of the, I think it was the Stain episode, we talked about, or I brought up that it was weird how suddenly we were on the three main characters being Ida, Todoroki, and Deku. And the basic thought process was like, you know, it's not uncommon for these types of shows to just follow groups of three. You know, when we introduced it, it was like, it seemed like it was maybe Deku, Bakugo, and maybe Ochako, and then maybe like Deku, Ochako, and Ida, and then, you know, to Ida, Deku, and Todoroki, and it felt like we were just consistently moving between groups of three. But for the first time, I felt like we were actually not in a group of three, but it just felt like everyone, well, not everyone, but most people had like their own time to shine. And I felt like for the first time, and it felt like this was an actual ensemble cast with each person playing a role in the, you know, plot, actually doing things. And that extends a little bit to, I will say not as much, but it extends a little bit to the Hideout raid when it is 5 characters plus Bakugo plus All Might and, you know, other people. So I will say these 2 volumes did a really good job of expanding the cast. Specifically, I'll throw one, I have a couple, but just to throw one name out there, or 2 names, I thought the stuff with some of the Class B students, specifically Tetsu and Kendo, I liked a lot. You know, we talked about, or you had brought up Kendo during the tournament arc, and I had brought up that like I don't really care about this character at all, but you know, she's receiving a lot of screen time, and that's all the only reason I even recognize her. But in this time, in this showcasing, I actually felt like, oh hey, look, this is a character. You know, there was a moment where Kendo was like was thinking about Tetsu and said, you know, he has such a like straight, I forget what it was, some sort of like insult, you know, alluding to him being sort of dumb. But then she says like, but I think that's what I like about him. And I was like, hey, look at that. There's like some characterization going on here. Who would have thought? Anyone from the sidecast stick out with for you?
Well, I was glad. I mean, I was kind of disappointed that Yamomo got knocked out in one hit, but
unfortunately,
at least she did get to tag that Nomu. It ended up making a difference.
Yeah, I mean, let's give her credit where credit's due. That is a character arc, you know, like that's character progression is, you know, they even say it in the manga. They say, you know, hey, what I know about you, I think All Might says this, what I've heard about you is that you have a hard time making decisions in the moment, but you did this thing and it's going to save, you know, it's going to help a lot of people. And that's true. So go Momo.
And I mean, all the villains were pretty cool. I like that they all like had at least a line basically explaining why they were with the League of Villains, because, you know, we're not going to see a lot of them again.
Yeah, I mean, even give it to the little reptile dude and following, like, genuinely preaching about Stain. That was cool.
Yeah, but I also like that you could kind of see he didn't
quite understand.
Yeah, he was a little bit disconnected with Stain's message, but he got the gist.
Well, that's kind of the gist of every character who follows Stain, and I mean, you could extend this to real life. I mean, I don't want to get too political here, but like when someone has such strong ideals, they tend to attract a large group of people, even if those people might not quite understand what they're talking about. Just because people with strong ideals are attractive, you know. Yeah,
Stain was hot.
That is true. In his own weird, fucked up kind of way. I could see it. Anyone else on the sidecast that you liked?
Habuko.
Who's that?
She was from the end of chapter 89. She was Sue's best friend in middle school, and they still text.
That was a weird one. That was, I don't necessarily know if I agree with the methodology there behind putting that. You know, like, he was like, this is a really dark chapter. Let's lighten it up. And I was like, no, I kind of just want to stay dark, you know? I just want to stay where we were. I don't know why we need this.
Hey, turn that flashlight off.
So there's that, I guess, if you want to count that. We talked about it a little earlier. We talked about Tokiyomi. Tokiyami, whatever his name is. I actually wanted to just give him a shout out. I don't have a ton of stuff to say about him, but hey, cool. That was really awesome. Actually, and you know what? It's easy to give him credit because he had the huge there was this panel. I guess I'm side tangenting here. There was this panel where the first time we saw him, and he was like, it looked like he was being eaten by his shadow monster, and I was like, I felt so bad. I was like, this poor kid. And it all started because he was trying to protect his friend. He saw his friend get injured, and instinctively he just entered this sort of crazy rage mode. And I don't know. I think that Tokiyami, a severely underused character. I talked about with Momo, it's like they're giving us too much screen time for how much I don't want her or how much she's like not actually doing that much or doing good stuff. With Tokiyami, we're not getting enough screen time, and everything we do get is just so good that like, give me more, give me more of this character. But I also want to give a shout out to the person that was with him, lost their arm, was Shoji. I think we've seen more of him talk in this one chapter than in the entire show before this.
I think that's accurate.
I really liked, I really liked the moment where he was like, Deku, if you need to go save Bakugo, you could do that, but I'm not leaving him here. Like, I'm not leaving a friend behind. I was like, hey, good for you, man. I like it.
Yeah, he's a cool dude.
Anyone else?
I really like how Tokoyami talks like Shadow the Hedgehog. Like, it is the best ongoing joke of the whole series.
Does that... So I was talking with one of our friends, and she was talking about how why she prefers the manga, and she did isolate Tokiyami as like talking different in the manga, and I guess I just never noticed it. Is that like a notable thing that he kind of talks different in the anime or whatever?
I do think he keeps the same speech patterns in the anime, but it's just he doesn't get that much screen time.
That's true. Well, the sidecast, we also got Toga. Spoiler, I'm gonna talk a little bit more about Toga with the question of the week, but we also got Debbie, was that his name?
Dabby.
Or Dabby?
Yeah.
Dabby. Hit him with a dab. Okay. And then any other villains? We got Magic Man. Thoughts on these guys? Actually, before you get any thoughts, I just want to point out this before I forget it. It was really, really weird. I don't know if anyone else thought it was this weird, but when Magic Man, I don't know his actual name, when Magic Man kidnaps Bakugo, Deku immediately turns around and is just like, give him back! and then he kidnaps Tokiyami, and Deku says, you can't have them! Give them back! It's like,
they're mine!
It's like, Deku, what are you saying? I thought that was like the weirdest. It's like really funny, but it also seems like, I don't know, childishly naive. It seems really weird. I don't know.
Yeah, like, first off, I'm not gonna do that.
All right, that's my little tangent about Magic Man. Any other villains stand out? Toga or Dabi?
Dabi didn't really. He was the only character that didn't really get a monologue about why he's a villain, but he did. He got this. He was mostly like taunting the heroes, basically, and there was this line he said to Aizawa. You're not the ones we have beef with. Which, leads me to suspect, hey, Dobby's probably got a personal grudge against one of these students here. And, fire powers, and, blue flame. I mean, come on. Clearly, he's Shoto Todoroki's brother.
Is that what you're seeming to imply? I guess I didn't think of it that way, but... Okay, well, let me ask this first of all. Do you have a resolution, because you are caught up with the manga, do you have some resolution to the theory I'm not asking you to confirm or deny, but do you have some sort of resolution to this theory?
No, not really.
Okay. That is an interesting, he has like the spiky hair. It is black, but he could just dye it.
Yeah.
He has, is that like a burnt face? What's up with his like lower jaw?
They look like burn marks. Honestly, it's kind of hard to tell. They could just be like gouged out or something. I don't know.
It's an interesting theory, and I also want to say that his fight with Aizawa I thought was really interesting. I love watching Aizawa fight in general, but I also thought Dabi seems to be an interesting character of the group. He hasn't really talked a lot, but just based on the fact that he hasn't talked a lot leads me to believe that, in his introduction leads me to believe that if anyone here is following Stain's ideologies, it's going to be this character. So I'm interested in him moving forward. But to touch on this theory, that is certainly an interesting theory, but do we think Endeavor is the type of guy to have a kid and just not say anything, especially a kid this powerful?
Honestly, I'm not sure on the brother-specific, headcanon. I do think there's got to be some relationship between him and Todoroki, though. Maybe not, blood-related. Maybe he has some fixation on Endeavor.
Well, to feed into your theory a little bit, I'm not overlooking it. I actually do think Endeavor is the type of guy to have a kid and not tell anyone about it.
He's done some shady shit.
Yeah, it would not surprise me. I don't know if it's confirmed one way or the other, but it would not surprise me if all of those children of his don't leave the complex at all. He just keeps them locked away. That would not surprise me in any way. So if he had one kid who was just sort of a bad apple, it would not surprise me that Endeavor is the type of person to just keep that under wraps. Now, he doesn't seem to have any sort of ice powers, which, even Todoroki's quote-unquote failed, siblings contain some semblance of a white streak of hair somewhere. So unless I'm wrong there, but it does seem it would seem weird for him unless it was I don't know, maybe a child of a previous marriage. Who knows? I'm gonna give your theory more credit than you seem to give it. I think it is entirely possible, and I don't know, but we'll see. So last thing before we get into the question of the week and general thoughts, and this is gonna be might be a pretty big one. So you obviously have seen or have read the rest of the manga, what's out right now. I have not, but I've kept my pulse on the grapevine. I knew what was happening even when I wasn't reading or watching. I had I'd seen GIFs and screen caps here and there, so I knew. But was there ever a point where you thought Bakugo might not have been he might have traded sides and become a villain when they kidnapped him? Was there ever a point in your mind where you genuinely weren't sure?
I mean, I always wanted him to be nah, fuck that, I'm a hero. But there was the nagging fear in my mind, oh, Horikoshi, please don't be a hack and copy Sasuke.
I guess I would be. Well, okay, so my further extrapolated question is because even knowing it, I never quite felt like he would. I always just knew that Bakugo, he's just not, I see why someone might think that, but I just don't think, if you really understand his character, it doesn't seem like something he would do. Yeah. But knowing that, does that sort of indicate a sort of black and white morality being played into the show? Because, not that this is necessarily a bad thing, but it is just a facet of it. It feels like, there are other things in this chapter that made me feel this way. It feels like heroic activities are just so mindlessly praised in the show, or in the manga, in the series, as to where unheroic activities are so, apparently shamed upon. So, specifically, I think of the scene with Aoyama, or as if that's how you pronounce it, the laser guy. Yeah. And he was the only one who was hiding in a bush. He was the only one who was running away from all the problems, despite that being the smart option. Despite, before Aizawa says anything, they're technically not supposed to use their powers. And even after Aizawa says they're okay to use their powers, the goal is survival, not to beat the villains. The goal is to just get away. So for all logical purposes, Aoyama Laser Boy is doing the right thing here. He is hiding in a bush, and that is okay. Despite that, no one never says anything because no one knows, but we are very clearly meant to get the impression that he's a coward. that he is, he's a loser, he's a coward, and we are not supposed to praise that type of quality, so much so that when he does eventually just shoot a laser out from the bush, without even really, revealing his position, or he does reveal his position, but not in like some sort of heroic entrance, but just doing this one heroic deed, that is like the big moment for him. It's like, hey, you did it. You stopped being a coward, and you actually help people. So when something like that is shamed upon, and then we have like the likes of Deku, who is just, he praises heroes, so much about him is like the love of heroes and him doing heroic things, and we had the Koda fight of him. I mean, that was also a stupid move. Like him going to fight Muscular, yes, it was a heroic thing. He saved Koda, but that was dumb.
Terrible
he could have
idea.
died. Yeah, they both could have died. He has no reason to believe that he could have won that fight. So when we have something like that, with such high praise, and we have something the opposite of that, such high shaming, are we seeing that this series is quite black and white? To add on top of that, the character that we know, a character like Bakugo would not become evil. This sort of indicates to me that the series does not operate in the shades of gray. It is very much good and bad. That was a pretty big info dump that I didn't warn you about, but just what are your general thoughts on that?
It's an interesting take, haven't really considered it. I think, most of the characters we see either are heroes or villains, because, this is such a hero-centric society. But even Stain, at one point tried to be a hero, and then a vigilante, and then, he became a villain. And I guess you couldn't really call it him like an anti-hero, because he was just flat out killing heroes. Like, that's just the opposite of what a hero does. So, yeah. He was clearly a villain, but he did have some admiration for heroes, and later down the line we see some heroes, or rather some villains, who don't necessarily disagree with, like, the heroic ideals, but they just operate differently.
So here's what I'm going to say to Stain, because I think Stain is the big outlier, right? Like, this is clearly the most gray character in the series. He is very much, maybe not necessarily being an anti-hero. He is a villain that, due to circumstance, and really strives for these heroic ideals. Yeah. However, what I'll say is that while that character exists, does the series promote those ideals as much as he does? Because, like Ida said in this very volume, what you guys are doing is exactly what you shamed me of doing. Like just rushing in. I guess this has less to do with Stain's moralities and Stain's ideals, but just is the things concerning or surrounding Stain being upheld? Because Ida rushing in to fight Stain was this big character flaw. It was this thing that he should not have done, and then because of it, certain things happened, like Deku had to step up and Todoroki had to step up, and ultimately it was a character flaw that he has to overcome, and he has to realize that you can't just act on pure emotion like that, and acting on pure hatred is something that, or pure vengeance is not heroic, and that is something Stain is against. Yet despite that, we go into this chapter and we see, despite everything that happened with Stain, Deku, Todoroki, Kirishima, and, Momo, they're all just like, yeah, let's go do this, And even Ida is then roped on to then doing the exact same thing. He says it. This is exactly what you guys nailed me on with Stain, and you guys are doing the exact same thing here. And they're like, yeah, well, what are we going to do? Bakugo's captured. We got to do it. So it's like, okay, sure, Bakugo's captured. You got to do it. But that's just sort of like the conflicting messages I'm getting from the show, where it's like it is pushing away the sort of gray element, and it is going back into the world of black and white, because I don't see this panning out poorly for them. I mean, I know they're gonna save Bakugo. I know this is gonna to some extent work out for them. So ultimately, this one like kind of gray aspect is just gonna turn into a good thing. A straight up good thing.
I think where the saving Bakugo venture differs from Ida's, vengeance tour, is that, he was obviously motivated by revenge, whereas they were trying to, save a comrade. Which, I guess, the road to hell's paved with good intentions, but still, they're keeping the heroic ideals in mind.
That's true. That's true. The other, and just, and ultimately what I'm putting forward is a discussion, not necessarily complaints or praise, not just a discussion. The other big thing to counter this point that I made was, I do think the mole is, I don't know.
Oh, yes,
I don't know
the mole.
I don't know if the mole is resolved at this point in the story where you are. So,
It isn't.
just okay, cool. So the mole is obviously a big question mark. Who is the mole? Is it a good guy? Is it a hero? Is it a student?
Who's the
And
mole?
I think if the mole is one of the heroes and the students and has good reasoning, but like they still are a good person and they just have, for some reason they have to do this, then I think we lend ourselves to a more complex morality. If it's just a hero or a student who's evil, it's just like, haha, I'm not actually a hero, I'm a villain, then I think it does play a little bit more into the black and white nature. But I'm going to give them
less interesting.
Yeah, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt, maybe undeservedly, maybe on one hand, it's deservedly because clearly he's written a good story, and I do trust him to write a good story, but if I were to not give him the benefit of the doubt, it is because, like I talked about with the muscular fight, he's not nailing everything. Some of it's not great, so I do want to give him the benefit of the doubt in general, just to say that this mole is going to pay off in an interesting way, and I think that would be one of the heroes or students. I don't know who it would be, but to just have good reasoning to do this and not just be a villain. Do you have any, well, I guess don't give me any spoilers, but so feel free to just refrain from answering the question, but do you have any inklings or theories on who the mole might be?
I've been doing some speculation. There have not been many hints. We're not even sure if it's a student or a teacher, I believe. I think most people think it's a student, though. So, I'm not sure. It could be someone from Class B, Class A.
Without knowing, like, why, or without knowing what we get in the future, it's hard for me to say it's not going to be a teacher, but if they were to reveal it in the next chapter, it would feel very weird for me to have it be a teacher, because so few of the teachers have been like developed in any notable way. The few that have, it would be weird for it'd be weird for All Might to do it, it'd be weird for Aizawa to do it, it'd be weird for the principal to do it, it'd be weird for Midnight to do it. So of those teachers that we do know to a notable degree, it'd be weird if any of them did it, and the other teachers we don't really know enough that it would be like climactic enough for them to have a heel turn. So that's why I'm like less inclined to think it's a teacher. But of course, that's there are 100 chapters or whatever between the here and now, or here and then. So
right.
Or now and whatever. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know if those teachers are expanded on in any sort of notable way. I am inclined to think it's a student, but even then, I look at the roster of students, and there are there are people who I'm like, okay, I have my doubts about you, Mr. Evil Dude from Class B, who is like stealing people's quirks and stuff. Okay, you're a little questionable, but like because he's questionable, it's almost too obvious of a choice. And I don't feel like there are any, like, I don't quite like look at Class A or Class 1A, and I don't see any good picks there. The one I've heard, and I haven't heard any reasoning, but I've just heard this name associated with the mole theory. So you tell me what you think about this, is Kaminari. Does that stick out for you for any reason? Yeah.
It doesn't stick out to me, but he's certainly not, like, written off either. Like, he could be a suspect. I'm more suspicious of Jiro and Hagakure, because those two were knocked out by the poison gas, so they were out there, but they had no conflict with the villains, really. I guess they were, like...
Who is that second person?
Jiro and Hagakure, that's the Invisible Girl.
Okay. It would be really weird for it to be the Invisible Girl, though. Like, it's just like, you're just a meme character. Why?
That's why no one saw her coming, man. She's the Invisible Girl.
Has that ever worked, though? Like, just the meme character turns... Because that is basically the Jar Jar Binks theory, the Darth Jar Jar, and I hate
Darth
that theory.
Jar Jar.
Like, that is my least alternative title is Darth Binks. That is like one of my least favorite fan theories in all of the universe, and you know what really bothers me about, it's not even just like it's this joke theory someone came up with and it's kind of fun and people like it, that plenty of people do those joke theories and those are fun. This is like, dude, it all makes sense now. George Lucas, he was clearly planning this from the beginning. Oh my god.
Genius.
It's like
genius.
It's like, shut up, I hate you. I never bring up the prequels around me again. Even though I brought that up. But anyways, yeah, I guess my point was, I don't think a meme character, like, it would be weird for Mineta to be.
No, it is Mineta.
It would make more sense for it to be Mineta, like, narratively, than it would be for that invisible girl. I'll say that, at the very least.
Yeah, they could at least promise him girls.
So I guess the third option is a new character entirely, I suppose. It's kind of hard to, postulate on how that would play out, so to know whether or not you'd like that.
How did he know?
I guess it could be a fake out. It could be like there's no mole, and they just have... I mean, is it so insane to think that someone has a quirk where they could just,
like read minds or something?
Or just just know things, like at the beginning of Naruto, the third Hokage's crystal ball type thing, where he just gets to look at people, Is it that out there to just assume someone might have a quirk like that?
I guess it's possible. They don't really consider it. I guess probably never
one of the characters we introduced this very volume, or the past 2 volumes, was a character who just looks at people and knows like their powers and their weaknesses, and like what is the basis of that, so like quirks are pretty out there in what they're capable of. So I don't, unless there's like secretly one of the teachers is like an anti-sensory quirk, and they've been like, no, that wouldn't work because I've blocked off people from doing that, then I don't know. It seems like there are holes in the security system that could be exploited, I guess is what I'm saying.
There must be.
Just a quick, do I even want to know the answer? So the character I just brought up was, she was one of the wild pussycats, or whatever their name is. She was the one who could tell people's weaknesses and stuff. Is she dead? Do I want to know the answer?
If they have answered it, since, like this arc where I am, I don't remember. And if they haven't answered it, I don't know.
That's sad. I wasn't even like particularly attached to her, but
it's just a shame to see good heroes die,
Yeah. How's it gonna affect Koda?
I'm sure he won't mind.
Yeah, I mean, he's always hated these fucking losers. Did you catch that one of the, it's sort of ambiguous, but it definitely hints one way, one of the post-chapter like author notes had Horikoshi point out the big muscular pussycat guy and was like, this used to be a girl, and then he said, I've been to Thailand before. So that seems to imply that it is a I don't know what the proper term is, transvestite, transsexual, I don't know. They were a female and then had a surgery and became a boy. Did you catch that at all?
I must have missed that one.
Well, some people are just thinking that like he might have just meant that, it was when he
originally a female character and then became a male character.
Yeah, he said that before, that he's like done that with various characters, but he also dropped Thailand, and Thailand has this huge thing about like people changing, or like men, I don't know. I'm just gonna, never mind. I don't want to offend anyone here. It's just something interesting I thought. Just wanted to bring it up, but never mind. All right. Would you rather do general thoughts first or the question of the week?
Let's do question of the week.
All right. Question of the week. Again, it is, so far, what has been your favorite fight? Let us know your answer in the comment section below. My answer, or do you want to go first?
Sorry, what was the question?
So far, what has been your favorite fight?
Favorite fight? You can go first. This is kind of a hard one.
Well, it is. And, because my answer is highly personal. I mean, obviously, when we're talking about favorites, it is. But, like, when I'm talking, like, really highly personal, because I cannot imagine a world where anyone has this fight as their favorite. And that is because... the fact of this being the first volume and the first 2 volumes where I feel like I am actually looking at the fights differently. And that is giving me a new perspective that I did not get with, a Todoroki versus Deku or a Bakugo versus Ochako. And if I counted anime, I would say Bakugo versus Ochako. That's my favorite fight. But because this is Training Arc, this is the manga review podcast, I'm not going to let my anime preferences color, my answer at all. I'm going to ignore those and just take those manga fights as I perceive them. And because, I was perceiving them poorly back when I read them, I can't give it to Ochako versus Bakugo, and I can't give it to Deku versus Todoroki. I can't give it to Deku versus Bakugo. I have to pick from these two volumes because this is the first time I'm really able to absorb them in the proper way. So looking at this, I had to go through and really pick what was my favorite. And I already said I didn't particularly like Deku versus Muscular. You know, just while it was an enjoyable fight, thematically I did not think it was very good. So I have two answers. One that I don't think counts, but if it does count, I do think All Might and like the other heroes raiding Tomura Shigaraki's base, I do like that a lot. You know, it's like Gran Torino and the top 5 heroes and all of them.
That was a cool one.
If we want to count that, and I really like Kamui Woods. You know, they had a I don't know if this was a chapter note or they said it in the actual story, but it was like it was said that, you know, people theorize that the next generation he is going to be like the hero leading people, you know, maybe not like the All Might because he's just not that powerful, but like he's going to be like a big beacon of, you know, heroic activity. I think that sounds really great. I like this character a lot. He's really interesting. And clearly he's not been characterized a lot, but just like his power is really interesting. I like his design and the brief, you know, he has this moment where he apologizes for letting them go, even though it was clearly not his fault at all. I thought, like, you know, there's brief glimpses here that I want to see more of him. So I like that. I like some of the other characters that they brought, like Gran Torino, obviously. So I'm inclined to say that is my favorite, but it wasn't really a fight. You know, it was sort of like a panel of them doing things, and then the rest of it was them, like Tomura and his team, just tied down and talking. So if we're not going to count that, my second answer, and again, highly personal, is Toga versus Ochako. And I want to give it to
fights.
Yeah, I want to give it to Ochako here because despite Toga being like, you know, just my sort of, you know, I love her. Despite that, I do want to put the highlights on Ochako because she displayed her gunhead martial arts, you know, and I think this is a really interesting avenue to take this character. You know, she narrated how, like, okay, enemy with a knife, grab them by the back of the neck, grab their wrist, pull, yank, and it was like she walked us through this fight. I thought it was really interesting. I like the idea of her, you know, becoming a better combatant in the hand-to-hand, you know, field. I like that her going to Gunhead is actually not just like a one-off sort of joke about like, haha, look at this bright pink character going with this like guy named Gunhead. That's funny. And I like that it's actually playing into the story and it's affecting how she like handles situations. So because of that, and you know, just to give a little credit to Toga, Toga being interesting, I will give my, you know, highly personal answer as that so far that is my favorite fight.
Interesting choice. I think I'm gonna have to go with Bakugo versus Todoroki. Because I like the fact that Bakugo won that event overall so much, and because I like the fact that, you know, even though he won, he sort of felt cucked, like, how can you call this a victory? So it sort of had that, like, anticlimactic ending of no one really won. It was just a pretty cool moment. And, you know, it's a matchup I wanted to see for a while, and, you know, Bakugo gave him that work. Like, it was an enjoyable fight.
I guess, you know, we've talked about that fight before, so I'm not going to recycle old arguments, but the one thing, like, I could see that fight being so easily overshadowed by the exact same fight, except Todoroki is using his fire, you know? So it's like, there's such a notable improvement to be made. And not that was like a mistake to have him not use the fire, because I obviously think that was like really great for his character. But, you know, we're talking about just fights. If that fight happens again a couple chapters from now, but he's using his fire, I think that fight is now trumped by this fight. So
yeah,
that is my only counter argument. But I think that is a fair choice.
I'll say,
locking in your final answer?
Yeah. We haven't really gotten a new Bakugo versus Todoroki fight, which makes me sad, but, you know, it's what we gotta deal with.
Unfortunately. All right. Again, question of the week. So far, what has been your favorite fight? Let us know your answer in the comment section below. Let's move on to the final segment of the show. General thoughts on these last two volumes. I'll tell you right now, I have one note. It says, quote, big like. That's my general thoughts on these two volumes. Big like for me. I think these are, you know, last episode I had some deliberation on is it Stain? Do I like the Stain volumes or do I like the first volume more? You know what? I think that these two volumes blew them both out of the water. I really like what we got so far. And you know what? I'm willing to bet that the next two volumes are going to be even better. Or at the very least, the next volume is going to be even better. I don't know.
Well, yeah, we're about to hit a big climax.
Yeah, so we're on an up, baby. This is going nowhere but up. What
Hell
about
yeah.
you?
I gotta say, I share the same sentiments. Like, these two volumes were really dope. Like, there were a lot of suspenseful moments. You know, we got some great action, some great drama. It's everything a manga can be right here.
Well, you know, I'm not going to say I have no complaints because I obviously do. I you know, the Deku versus Muscular was a huge part of that first volume, and I didn't like it. But you know, I'm not gonna tie this volume down by my one or two complaints. You know, this volume, it really nailed it. You know, and in so many different ways. And you know, we didn't talk too much about the sidecast. I did bring it up, but I clearly talked about Muscular more. But I think the sidecast stuff was. My praise for that is so much larger than my complaints for the Muscular fight. You know, I think the work they did with the sidecast, truly, truly great. If there was only one thing I didn't like about it was that we didn't get more. You know, was that Ida was locked away and then we didn't get him. But other than that, great stuff. Any other general thoughts?
I feel like these arcs in My Hero Academia are so short in comparison to, like, older anime. Like, Naruto, the Forest of Death arc, compared to these, like, 7 chapters. It's just...
Yeah. You're right. That is one thing I've, like, noticed, is that it just, like... When we started this podcast, I was not expecting to already be caught up to the anime. You know, like, I was like, well, surely we have some time, right? Like, we're 3 seasons deep into the anime. Surely this isn't going to go over like that. But, you know, ultimately these are short. You know, we're fucking busting through.
Yeah. I mean, it's good, though. Keeps it, like, dense, concise, you know?
Yeah, I would be interested in... I'm not going to do this just because I just don't have the patience. But I would be interested in rewatching the anime, like, from the beginning to really, like, gauge the different levels of pacing to see, because my current perception is that the anime is a lot slower, and I actually prefer that. But I'm wondering if that actually holds true, and if I rewatch the anime, if I would feel similarly.
I do kind of feel that way about the anime, so, you know, we'll see when you do get around to doing that.
Maybe a couple years from now. All right, all in all, big likes.
All right,
2
everybody. Thumbs up.
That is going to do it for this week's episode of Training Arc. If you're watching this on YouTube, head on over to patreon.com/KatoYT and consider pledging to get the next episode on Monday. Otherwise, we will see you in a week with the next 2 volumes of My Hero Academia.
Peace.